Bonita Springs, Florida, known for its beautiful beaches, iconic state parks, being one of the safest communities in Florida, elegant resorts and dining options, and its iconic downtown with the Everglades Wonder Gardens. But of course, not everything is perfect in Bonita Springs. Recently, there has been an increase in homelessness, and many of the city's parks have started to look more like a homeless camp than an actual place you'd want to enjoy. Bonita Springs is also home to the second largest Guatemalan community in the state of Florida. Centered around the Rosemary neighborhood, only Tice in East Fort Myers has a larger Guatemalan community. Overwhelmingly, most of Florida's Guatemalans are undocumented, and that's the case here in Bonita Springs. Now, this community has a reputation of being hardworking people. Despite the fact you may see homelessness visible and lots of criminal activity in the Bonita Springs area as of recently, these people here are hard-working immigrant communities, and their reputation is that. Many who have children qualified for programs that allow them to have legal status in the United States, but overwhelmingly the Guatemalan community consists of single males who send money back home to their home country of Guatemala. There are many who have children. Historically, Bonita Springs Hispanic neighborhoods were Mexican, but after Trump's first term, the Mexican community left, and it was quickly replaced by the Guatemalan community. Today, overwhelmingly, possibly as much as 80% of Bonita Springs Hispanic community is Guatemalan. The aspect of these neighborhoods isn't the best, but downtown Bonita Springs, which is adjacent to the Hispanic community, has recently been restored, renovated, and despite the large influx of people from Guatemala who are uneducated and are working in mediocre jobs like landscaping, construction, and hurricane cleanup, the city of Bonita Springs still has a fairly decent atmosphere, even for Southwest Florida. It's a desirable place to live. It isn't free from homelessness and many of the other problems that are now plaguing other parts of Florida. In fact, it was surprising to see that homelessness does exist in Bonita Springs, because after all, this is named one of the best places to live in Florida. Being next door to Naples and surrounded by beautiful beaches, without a doubt, this town is one of the most expensive and desirable places to live in Florida. Many YouTubers, including myself in the past, have named Bonita Springs among the top 10 best places to live in the state. And the Guatemalan community here has never deterred anybody from wanting to live in this city. In fact, many argue that without their presence, the city's wealthy and elderly population couldn't mow the lawns in Florida's heat. They're just looked at as good, hardworking people. But as we know, in the United States as a whole, federally and in the state of Florida, laws and policies are changing. And while for the most part, the wealthy and affluent residents of Bonita Springs have absolutely no problem with this community, the state and the federal government do. Most people in Bonita Springs have never cared about this community, have never wanted these people gone, and have benefited greatly from this community. Poor may they be, the Hispanic community here is as much as Bonita as anything in Bonita would be. After all, Bonita Springs is a Spanish name, and the Spanish had been here for hundreds of years. There really isn't much of a racial tension in Bonita Springs between the white, wealthy residents and the poor, hardworking Hispanics. There's an economical difference. There's a difference in the places they shop and they live, because after all, there's a huge income gap. But in Bonita Springs, the Hispanic community and the white have absolutely no tension. This is a place where the wealthy and the Hispanic live side by side. And growing up in this area, spending over 20 years of my life here, there has never been tension among these communities. These communities live side by side, coexist together, and Bonita Springs is known as a place where Hispanics and Americans live happily in a town with very few crime, except for the emerging homeless population, many of whom are from Michigan, Ohio, New York, transient from other places, but that's another story for another video. For the most part, Bonita Springs is a safe and clean city, and the residents that live here all enjoy this city. Of course, rated among one of the best places to live in Florida with plenty of good reason. Despite all the great things that exist in Bonita Springs, it always puzzled me how many of the kids that I grew up with here, despite coming from good families, good backgrounds, good morals, beautiful homes, lots of money, they needed nothing, from a young age leaned towards delinquency. We're talking females that got pregnant way too young and males that went to jail and prison way too early and way too often. I'm not sure exactly why. It's just a great place, created just a messed up generation, but I have to admit that a lot of the kids that I grew up with in Bonita Springs, if they're males, they ended up in prison, and if they're females, they ended up getting pregnant and are now baby mamas with daddies locked up. Despite the fact these kids were given the perfect setting, great homes, and great conditions, somehow their life led them down a horrible path in a beautiful place. Kind of reminds me of Venice, Florida, a place where despite the fact everything's beautiful for the exterior, particularly for those retiring, it seems to be a horrible place for the youth to grow up. It really hurt me to see these kids grow up coming from just good backgrounds and ending up being, well, complete mess-ups. And Bonita Springs isn't what it used to be. You go to the park and see homeless people and get some hard looks. It just seems like despite all the great things Bonita Springs has to offer, it never really will be the beautiful little town we grew up in, especially when I think about the fact that many of my peers that grew up with me are not living the life that we thought they would have lived as adults, considering all the great opportunities they were given. Interestingly, many of the people from the absolute most marginalized background are also some of the most successful people I've met. Despite coming from poverty, the dreamers, those who were just given an opportunity, today are successful business owners and have done everything good. Sadly, many of these individuals now who have contributed so much to our community will not be able to enjoy this place anymore. It really hurts me as someone who grew up here in Bonita Springs and knows how good these families are, how their children, despite coming from poverty, beat all the odds to be successful business owners and very productive people in society. Many of the children, thankfully, are U.S. citizens and are now over the age of 18. They're police officers, they're doctors, they're nurses, they're business owners, and they are successful. Bonita Springs' population is over 70,000 people, but the youth here is a lot smaller, and most of them, whether being from the rich neighborhoods or from the poor areas like Rosemary, where all the undocumented people live, kind of went to the same schools in Bonita or in Estero High School. It's just a really small group of people. Among them are the children of wealthy people who never amounted to anything and people who came from absolutely nothing and today are very successful. As of recently, fear has spread among this community, and among that fear is a lot of misinformation. Now, I don't have access to every single ICE arrest that has happened in Bonita Springs. Many times they come with undercover vehicles, haul people off, never to be seen or heard from again, and these agencies do not report their arrests. So many of the people that are being arrested and deported via those avenues are people who just simply do not exist on record for the rest of us to access. Even people who have been deported accordingly, when I go to the ICE database, write in their name, information, date of birth, they don't show up. It's a complete mystery what's really happening to people. But based off of the Lee County arrest records, we can get some type of picture about some of the people who've got arrested in Lee County by the Lee County Sheriff's Office. And just like in Sarasota, they seem like individuals who, for the most part, carved out their own futures by breaking the law. Let's go over some of these recent arrests. All these arrests are over the last 2 weeks. This is Diego. He's from the Nottingham area of Rosemary. He was arrested for no valid driver's license, and he is Guatemalan. In the case of the Lee County Sheriff's Office, most Guatemalans are given a bail of about $150, and the Lee County Sheriff's Office has chosen the route of court-appointed deportations and not just snatching people off the side of the road. But how the Lee County Sheriff's Office operates in the court systems in Lee County, and in particular within the city of Bonita Springs and their school districts, a lot of these people have kids, is one thing, and what happens exterior to that is another. This man is Marcos. He's Guatemalan. He's from Riverside behind the train tracks, and he had a failure to appear. This is kind of what Lee County is mostly trying to do with the Guatemalans, is It's court appointed. You had a failure to appear. You should have shown up in court and you didn't. Of course, most people know if they show up to the court hearing, they get deported. But if they don't, they get arrested and they still get deported regardless. This is Juan. He's from the back of Rosemary off of Streetsboro. He was arrested for battery and for resisting. In his case, he hit somebody. He broke the law. So if he gets deported, he's one of those people that's just kind of carved out their own future by breaking the law. Guatemalan, this is Juana. She's from San Carlos Park, and she was pulled over for no valid driver's license, and then she refused to sign the ticket. Now, I'm going to assume by the fact that they were trying to give her a ticket that this could have just been a court-related issue, but she failed to sign the ticket. As we know, ignorance of the law does not make you exempt, and failing to sign the ticket is an arrestable offense. Perhaps she thought if she signed the ticket, knowing very well that would go against her following court hearing. She probably has kids, and that's why she has that court hearing, but she was driving without a valid driver's license. A lot of times people just complicate their legal situation. Had she not been driving, perhaps she could have stayed here in the United States a little bit longer. But the fact that she refused to follow the law, driving with no valid driver's license, and of course refusing to sign the ticket, she pretty much, well, made her own future. Out of all the Latin American immigrants, Guatemalans have the lowest level of education, with a literacy rate among some of these people being less than 60%. So they don't really have a formal education, and they believe that law enforcement will just simply go away if they just sit there and say nothing or ignore law enforcement. But that's not really the things work. A lot of times you can't blame them because after all, they are coming from a background of growing up in the mountains with no education. So they're coming from a fairly savage place, and well, they're good intentioned people, but living in the United States is very complex and perhaps too complex for them. Plenty of Guatemalans are a little bit more educated and have been able to get their papers. But this type of behavior that she's displaying by her arrest, refusing to sign the ticket, pretty much lets me know that she just hasn't got enough education to figure out that if a police officer tells you you're signing a ticket, you're signing the ticket. Refusing to do so gets you arrested, getting deported. It was bound to happen either way. All this could have been avoided simply by using the Uber app. She decided to drive. Being a female with kids, she may have not even been an immigration priority. Now this is Sergio. He's from New York Street, behind the railroad tracks, the trailer park back there. He has a different situation. He has larceny, burglary, and burglary tools. The reputation of Guatemalans is that they're good, honest, hardworking people, but there's bad apples in every mix. And individuals like him who get caught on actual criminal charges, it's hard to feel sympathy for somebody breaking the law to steal. Here's another Guatemalan. He's from Wood Circle off of Rosemary. Now this guy is on his second no valid driver's license and a failure to appear. So he has no intentions to appear in front of the court or to obey rules like don't drive without a valid driver's license. Again, individuals who kind of just carve out their own path by breaking the law. This is Mr. Juarez. He's Guatemalan. He was arrested at the Covered Wagon mobile home park up there in Estero. FTA, failure to appear for a minor charge, but it would have been a major charge for him because he would have got deported. This is Mateo. He's off of Pennsylvania. No valid driver's license. He's from Guatemala. This young man will most likely see a deportation. This is Sebastian. He lives off of Goodwin Street. He had no valid driver's license, and he was also arrested. So yes, many people from the Guatemalan community in Bonita Springs are being arrested. Obviously, all these individuals broke the law and they kind of carved out their own future in deportations by going against the law. Many of them with failure to appear are individuals who most likely would have had court hearings pending, which means that they were trying to do things the legal way. It just didn't work out for them. Overwhelmingly, the Guatemalan community in Bonita Springs is very law-abiding. That's why you see the bicycles everywhere. These guys won't drive because they know they don't have a driver's license. They're trying to be as law-abiding as possible, and this is one thing that distinguishes the community of undocumented people in Bonita Springs from those in other places. These guys are not driving when they're not supposed to, for the most part. And this is why I really do feel like Bonita Springs will eventually see actual raids where they just snatch people on the side of the road, because with like probable cause and like actually detaining people, they're not going to get most of them. The ones that have driver's licenses drive, and the ones that don't. And overwhelmingly, most of them don't break the law. It's going to be very difficult with probable cause to really make a dent to the Guatemalan community here, because these people are just not going to risk it. Bonita Springs is also adjacent to Naples, Florida. Naples, Florida is very wealthy and affluent. Lush tropical gardens, properties that need a lot of landscaping maintenance. U.S. citizens are not going to live 12 to a house in Bonita Springs while living off of cutting grass for these rich people. This is a situation where only undocumented people are able to bear the unlivable conditions of being 12 to a house and being able to work in these jobs in the heat. U.S. citizens aren't going to live or work like that, which means that if the rich people in Naples want to continue to have their lawns mowed, they're going to have to pay up and considerably, and this is going to escalate into housing price as well. In the circumstance that about the 20 to 30,000 Guatemalans that live in Bonita Springs were to be completely gone, it would actually take about 7 times more housing for those same jobs that they occupy to be filled in. Because of course, U.S. citizens are not going to live 10 to 12 to a house. They're going to live 1 per unit, which means that the housing available in Bonita Springs will actually have to be considerably larger to subsidize the population density of these neighborhoods. For those who think that the Guatemalan community leaving will create lower rent prices, is a massive misunderstanding of how things actually work. With population density of Hispanic communities being far denser than other demographics, the realistic scenario is that the housing available in this area will not be enough once you replace these workers with workers who are going to require larger housing amenities. And even if the prices of the jobs were to increase to reflect somebody actually doing those jobs, that wouldn't really be the issue. The real issue is, where are you going to house the workers? You're not going to be able to house them at the same population density as you do now. So in the future case of this community actually disappearing with the current laws and things that are changing in the United States, the real question is, where would there be enough housing for all the workers to take all the jobs that currently exist? Bonita Springs has 38,000 housing units, out of which probably 4,000 or 5,000 are housing undocumented people. The issue is that if you were to replace those people with other people of a citizenship status, let's say, they would require easily about 20,000 houses, which is more than half of the available real estate in Bonita Springs, Florida. This is something called population density. Yes, you can replace people, but they have to live somewhere. And when you remove undocumented communities, the population density will decrease. And that decrease in population density will mean increased demand for real estate in Bonita Springs, Florida. And this isn't uncharted territory. In the case of Bonita Springs, the population density among the Mexicans that were here before the Guatemalans was higher than average, but not as high as it is now. So anybody from Bonita Springs knows exactly what I'm talking about. If you were to keep those jobs and you were to get rid of this population, the population that would replace them would require about 20,000 housing units that simply do not exist in Bonita Springs. In turn, the reality of the removal of the Guatemalan community would most likely correlate with the removal of those jobs from their existence versus the replacement of those people with U.S. citizens. And those who do have the opportunity to take those jobs are probably going to have farther commutes from places like Lehigh Acres. It's really uncertain what the future of Bonita Springs Hispanic communities will be with the current changes in the current situation, but what we do know is that the community is in fear and aware that eventually they're going to face raids and a lot of deportations. The effect of getting rid of the labor force that does maintenance in these communities will mean that people that are currently housed or renting are also going to have to see an increase in their monthly expenditures, as they're not going to be able to find people to fill in those jobs at the current rate. So most likely It's an effect that we've seen here in Lakewood Ranch, Florida, where I live, where we have seen our rents increase significantly because the communities have to hire new people that want more money, and it also creates a trickle effect of higher costs of rent. Now, in other parts of the country, removing people who are undocumented may actually open up opportunities. But you have to remember that these undocumented people are here because the jobs of landscaping and maintenance that exist here and taking care of golf courses are very hard jobs that pay very little. And that's not the case for every industry in every part of the country, but it is the case of the industries that exist here in Florida. And that really correlates to the reality that the removal of these communities will make a much more difficult economical outlook for the future of this area. People simply don't move to an area where jobs are difficult and pay very little. That's how you ended up with West Virginia, where the coal mines literally disappeared because the pay was too little, the jobs were too hard, and people couldn't do those jobs. So despite the fact in Eastern Kentucky and West Virginia, perhaps those types of jobs still exist to some type of degree, good luck convincing people to move there. And that's probably what's going to happen in Florida. The jobs are potentially going to exist, but who's going to want to do them? Look at it as a gig job. Let's say you're on DoorDash, for example, and a DoorDash offer comes through, or you're on Uber Eats, and you get to deliver something across town. It's a 45-minute delivery, but it only pays $3. Most of us know that that delivery is just going to sit there forever, and nobody's actually going to take it. Eventually, the person's going to have to decide whether they're going to pay more or not get their food delivered. Somebody might mysteriously take it, but nobody's signing up to do that. And this is kind of the reality of the economy here in Florida. And I think what a lot of people just don't understand about Bonita Springs is that the types of jobs that exist here are not the types of jobs that people are lining up to take. They're difficult jobs that pay very little. And even if these jobs paid incredible, even that wouldn't be an incentive for people to do those jobs, because they're not the type of jobs that people with documents are going to want. Then you also have to consider that Bonita Springs right now is a fairly safe city. These low-income areas like Rosemary, when they get filled in by U.S. citizens, it's usually people with criminal records, shady backgrounds. I think most of us understand that Bonita Springs, these open areas that are going to be available soon of Rosemary, once these deportations do take place, are going to get filled in with Pine Manor, and well, you guys know the rest of the picture, Lehigh Acres. And as we know, that doesn't create the best community, so it's possible that crime will literally increase dramatically in Bonita Springs. And of course, with those criminals come homeless people, because wherever you have sales, you have buyers. It's possible that Bonita Springs could see a significant rise in crime, because the types of people that are going to be filling in those voids are going to be more economically challenged, are going to have less opportunities, and are going to come from a background that's more disadvantaged. Then you also have the number of police officers that are going to have to patrol the city, the number of homeless resources that are going to have to be available. There's no telling how much this will drain the resources of Bonita Springs, because after all, these are not the type of people that go to hospitals, go to jail, or do much of anything. All they do is go work and go home. When you replace this community with another community, they kind of become a heavier draw from local resources. So in the case that the Guatemalan community were to disappear and were to be replaced with Americans, we know that Bonita Springs will probably stop being among one of the safest places in the United States and in the state of Florida for sure. Now, obviously, crime is higher in Bonita Springs Hispanic communities than it is in the wealthy gated areas. But once these areas become full of people from Lehigh Acres and Pine Manor, I think people understand what's about to happen. And I think deep down, the residents of Bonita Springs that are affluent know very well that this is a good, hardworking community, and that the crap they're going to be replaced with is going to be something different and far less desirable. So the future of Bonita Springs is once again changes. Now, it isn't just Guatemalans that call Bonita Springs a second home. Bonita Springs used to have a large Canadian community. Now, the Canadian community here has dwindled dramatically. I mean, there used to be a lot of Canadians in Bonita Springs. This was like a top Canadian destination. As of today, there are few Canadians left, but we're starting to see Canadians getting arrested as well. So it isn't just Guatemalans. This man right here is one of 2 Canadians arrested in Bonita Springs this week. There are still a lot of Canadians in Bonita Springs, and they're also being targeted as well. I'm pretty sure most people know the difference of what Bonita Springs was when it had a Mexican community versus when it got a Guatemalan community. Now, with the removal of the Guatemalan community, I think we all know what the next phase is going to be. And just like there was differences between the Mexican and Guatemalan community, there's definitely going to be differences between the Guatemalan community and the Lehigh Acres and Pine Manor that these areas are going to become. Overall, Bonita Springs is one of the safest cities in Florida, but it's questionable with these changes how long that will last. Now, when it came to African Americans and black people in general, Bonita Springs had a horrendous reputation back in the 70s. It's kind of a local secret that the locals know, but the outsiders don't. I think a lot of those people aren't here anymore, so I don't think a growing black community is going to face any hardships here or racism, because after all, I think those times are far behind in Bonita Springs, and the people that did those things are not around anymore. Most people in Bonita Springs are transplants or from somewhere else. It's not going to be really a problem, but we do know that demographically, when these neighborhoods get kind of replaced, like what happened in Pine Manor. I mean, we're not talking about unprecedented territory. We saw what happened in Pine Manor in Fort Myers. Now, Pine Manor is only about 25 minutes north of Bonita Springs, not even that. And in Pine Manor, it used to be a Hispanic community. Now, there was mostly Hondurans and Salvadorians, and there were some Guatemalans and Mexicans as well, a lot of Brazilians too. Pine Manor, the Lee County Sheriff's Office came in, and they got rid of all the undocumented people, and we've seen several homicides in Pine Manor since. Now, this was back when SB 1718 came through, and they actually enforced 1718 in Pine Manor. We see what happened in Pine Manor, where now you have homicides on a constant basis. It's very clear that if the same effect, the same Pine Manor effect, were to happen in Bonita Springs, Florida, Bonita Springs would see 4 to 5 more homicides every year than what it's seeing now. And with a population of 50,000 people, now I said 70,000, but technically it's actually 50,000. Regardless, we're going to see the homicide rate increase dramatically in Bonita Springs, turning Bonita Springs into somewhat of a South Fort Myers, which the people that paid good money to live here probably don't want to be within that much proximity to bad neighborhoods. But this is the reality of what's happening here. I think that these neighborhoods are going to become very, very bad. I mean, we already saw the Pine Manor effect not too far away, so that's what's coming to these neighborhoods. The people that are going to move into Rosemary that are U.S. citizens, it ain't going to be the cream of the crop. I mean, regular families with kids aren't going to move into Rosemary. I mean, I'm from this area. If affordability existed in Rosemary, I still wouldn't move there. But one thing is for certain, it will be difficult for people to live in these conditions and do these jobs and maintain this level of safety. It simply isn't going to exist.